It was a sunny afternoon and I was driving home with my son, Arian, after picking him up from his preschool. He was sitting in the back seat, playing with his toy car and humming a tune. I smiled as I watched him in the rearview mirror. He was such a happy and curious kid. As we passed by the old cemetery on the outskirts of the town, I noticed him looking out of the window with a puzzled expression. He pointed at something and asked me, "Daddy, who are those people?" I followed his gaze and saw a group of elderly women standing near the entrance of the cemetery. They were wearing white saris and had their heads covered with pallas. They looked like they were attending a funeral or paying respects to someone. "Those are Grandma's, son. They are here to visit their loved ones who are not alive anymore," I explained. Arian tilted his head and asked, "Not alive? What does that mean?" I sighed and tried to find a simple way to explain death to him. "Well, you know how sometimes your toys stop working and you can't play with them anymore? It's like that. When someone is not alive, they can't talk, move, or do anything. They are gone forever." Arian frowned and said, "That's sad. Why did they go away?" I felt a pang of sadness as I remembered my own parents who had passed away a few years ago. I wished they could have met their grandson and seen how much he looked like them. I said, "Sometimes people go away because they are very old or very sick. It's not their fault. It's just how life is. But we can still remember them and love them in our hearts." Arian nodded and said, "Okay, I love you, Daddy." I smiled and said, "I love you too, son." We drove on, and I thought the conversation was over. But then, Arian said something that made my blood run cold. "Daddy, those grandmas are not alive either." I looked at him in shock and asked, "What do you mean, son? How do you know that?" He pointed at the cemetery again and said, "Because I can see them. They are standing there, looking down at the grass. They are not moving or blinking. They are not breathing. They are not alive." I felt a chill down my spine as I glanced at the cemetery. The women were still there, but they looked different. They looked pale and gaunt, with sunken eyes and hollow cheeks. Their saris were torn and stained with dirt and blood. Their hands were clasped together, as if in prayer or supplication. They were staring at the ground, as if they were waiting for something. I realized with horror that they were not grandmas. They were ghosts. I stepped on the gas and sped away from the cemetery, hoping to get away from the haunting sight. I tried to calm myself and rationalize what I had seen. Maybe it was a trick of the light, or a hallucination, or a prank. Maybe Arian had a vivid imagination, or he was joking, or he had seen a movie or a book that influenced him. But I knew in my gut that none of those explanations were true. I knew that Arian had a special gift, or a curse, that allowed him to see things that others couldn't. I knew that he had seen the dead, and they had seen him too. I wondered what they wanted from him, and what they would do to him if they ever got him. I hugged him tightly and whispered, "Don't worry, son. I will protect you. I won't let them hurt you." He hugged me back and said, "Thank you, Daddy. But they are not the only ones. There are more. There are many more." I felt a shiver run through me as I heard his words. I looked at the rearview mirror and saw dozens of ghostly faces staring at us from the cemetery. They were young and old, male and female, of different races and religions. They had one thing in common. They were all dead, and they were all following us. I drove as fast as I could, trying to lose the ghosts that were chasing us. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I just knew that I had to get away from them. I looked at Arian and saw that he was terrified. He was clutching his toy car and trembling. He kept looking back at the window, as if he expected to see the ghosts at any moment. I tried to comfort him and said, "It's okay, son. We'll be fine. They can't hurt us. They can't touch us." He shook his head and said, "No, Daddy. They can. They can touch us. They can hurt us. They can do bad things to us. They want to take us with them. They want us to be like them." I felt a surge of fear and anger as I heard his words. How did he know what they wanted? How did he know what they could do? What had they done to him already? I asked him, "Son, how do you know that? How do you know what they want and what they can do?" He looked at me with his big, innocent eyes and said, "Because they told me. They talk to me. They whisper in my ear. They say things that make me scared. They say things that make me sad. They say things that make me mad. They say things that make me bad." I felt a cold sweat on my forehead as I heard his words. He was hearing voices. He was hearing the voices of the dead. They were trying to influence him, manipulate him, corrupt him. I asked him, "What do they say to you, son? What do they tell you?" He lowered his voice and said, "They tell me to do things. Things that I don't want to do. Things that you don't want me to do. Things that are wrong. Things that are evil. Things that are dangerous. Things that are deadly." I felt a knot in my stomach as I heard his words. He was being coerced. He was being coerced by the dead. They were trying to make him do things. Things that could harm him, harm me, harm others. I asked him, "What kind of things, son? What kind of things do they want you to do?" He looked at me with a mixture of fear and guilt and said, "They want me to hurt you, Daddy. They want me to hurt you and make you go away. They want me to make you not alive. They want me to make you one of them." I felt a shock of horror as I heard his words. He was being threatened. He was being threatened by the dead. They were trying to make him kill me, kill his own father. I asked him, "Why, son? Why do they want you to do that? Why do they want you to hurt me?" He looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "Because they hate you, Daddy. They hate you and they hate me. They hate us because we are alive. They hate us because we are happy. They hate us because we have each other. They hate us because we are not like them." I felt a wave of sadness as I heard his words. He was being hated. He was being hated by the dead. They were trying to make him hate me, hate his own father. I asked him, "How do you know that, son? How do you know that they hate us?" He looked at me with a desperate expression and said, "Because they tell me, Daddy. They tell me every day. They tell me every night. They tell me every time I see them. They tell me every time I hear them. They tell me every time I feel them." I felt a shiver of dread as I heard his words. He was being tormented. He was being tormented by the dead. They were trying to make him suffer, suffer like they did. I asked him, "How do you feel them, son? How do you feel them?" I never knew my uncle very well. He was a recluse who lived in a remote mansion in the countryside. He was obsessed with collecting strange and rare objects from different cultures and eras. He had everything from ancient Egyptian mummies to medieval torture devices to alien skulls. He never let anyone visit his house, not even his family. He died a few months ago, and I was surprised to learn that he had left me his house and his collection in his will. I thought it was a generous gesture, but I also saw it as an opportunity to make some money. I didn't care about his weird stuff. I just wanted to sell it and move on with my life. I hired an auctioneer to appraise and sell the house and its contents. He was amazed by the variety and value of the items. He said it was a treasure trove for collectors and museums. He arranged a public auction for the next week and invited potential buyers from all over the world. He assured me that I would make a fortune from the sale. The day of the auction came, and I drove to the house with the auctioneer. There were dozens of cars parked outside the gate and a crowd of people waiting to enter. The auctioneer greeted them and led them inside the house. He told me to stay outside and wait for him. He said he would show them around the house and then start the bidding. He said it would take a few hours, and then we would be done. I waited in my car, listening to some music and browsing the internet on my phone. I was bored and impatient, but I also felt a bit nervous. I had a strange feeling about the house, like it was watching me. I shrugged it off as paranoia and tried to relax. After a while, I heard a loud scream from inside the house. It sounded like a woman. I jumped out of my car and ran to the door. It was locked. I banged on it and shouted, but no one answered. I looked for another way in, but all the windows and doors were sealed. I panicked and called the police. I told them there was something wrong in the house and that I needed help. The police arrived in a few minutes. They tried to break down the door, but it was too strong. They used a battering ram, but it bounced off. They used a chainsaw, but it jammed. They used explosives, but they fizzled. Nothing worked. The house was impenetrable. I heard more screams from inside the house. They were louder and more desperate. They sounded like they were coming from different rooms. I heard cries for help, pleas for mercy, and curses of pain. I heard the auctioneer's voice, but it was distorted and twisted. He was laughing maniacally and saying things like, "Welcome to my uncle's house of horrors. You are all doomed. You will never escape. You will die here." I realized that the house was cursed and that my uncle had trapped us all in his twisted game. He had left me his house and his collection as a trap, not a gift. He had hated everyone and wanted to take us all down with him. He had rigged the house with traps and curses and activated them when the auction started. He had turned his collection into weapons of torture and death. He had made the house alive and evil. I was terrified and helpless. I couldn't get in and they couldn't get out. I could only listen to their screams and his laughter. I could only watch as the house slowly killed them one by one. I could only wait for my turn. That's my story, listeners. I'm still outside the house, and I don't know how much longer I have. The police have given up and left. The media have arrived and are broadcasting the story. The crowd has dispersed and gone home. I'm alone with the house, and it's still screaming and laughing. It's still killing and cursing. It's still waiting for me. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to end this. I don't know if anyone can hear me. I don't know if anyone can help me. I don't know if anyone can save me. If you can please, please, please help me. This is the end of Tales of Terror. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Wait, what's this? I see a light. A bright light. It's coming from the sky. It's getting closer and closer. It's a helicopter. A rescue helicopter. It has a loudspeaker and a rope ladder. It's calling my name. It's telling me to grab the ladder. It's telling me to hold on. It's telling me to stay calm. It's telling me that they are here to help. It's telling me that they are here to save me. I can't believe it. Someone heard me. Someone helped me. Someone saved me. I run to the ladder and grab it. I climb up as fast as I can. I reach the helicopter and get inside. I see the pilot and the co-pilot. They are smiling and nodding. They are wearing badges and uniforms. They are from the government. They are from a special agency. They are from the Paranormal Division. They are experts in dealing with curses and hauntings. They are the ones who sent me the letter. The letter that told me that I had inherited the house and the collection. The letter that was a trap. The letter that was a test. They tell me that they are sorry for what I went through. They tell me that they had to do it. They tell me that they had to test me. They tell me that they had to test my uncle's house and collection. They tell me that they had to test their potential. They tell me that they had to test their power. They tell me that my uncle was not a collector of oddities and artifacts. He was a collector of relics and weapons. He was a collector of ancient and alien technology. He was a collector of secrets and knowledge. He was a collector of things that could change the world. He was a collector of things that could destroy the world.